Please go to Finnegans Wake Notes.net for a full explanation of the text, and please don't forget to hit the like button.
Welcome to the Demystification of Finnegans Wake podcast. Don't forget to hit the like button, subscribe, and leave a comment to support us. All right, welcome everyone to this deep dive. Today we are getting to a real giant of literature, James Joyce's Finnegans Wake.
Oh, yeah. It's kind of the ultimate literary enigma, isn't it? That book that, well, everyone's heard of, but its reputation is mostly about how incredibly dense and complex it is.
Baffling, yeah. Often called the book almost no one has actually read, let alone finished. It feels like it's written in code sometimes.
It really does, and that's kind of the point, in a way.
And that's exactly why we're doing this deep dive. Our goal here is to be your guides. We've gathered together what we hope is a kind of skeleton key, maybe a decoder ring, using our sources, academic essays, classics like A Skeleton Key to Finnegans Wake, even Finnegans Wake for Dummies.
Yeah, the aim is to pull out the main themes, figure out who the key players are, and crucially, talk about how you might actually read this thing.
Exactly. We want to give you the tools to approach it, not as some impossible test, but as, well, a really rich interactive experience. Hopefully, without feeling totally overwhelmed.
So by the end of this, you should have a pretty good handle on what Joyce was trying to do with this massive project. You'll be able to appreciate its strangeness and its impact.
Okay, let's get ready then. We're diving into a world where apparently rivers talk. History loops back on itself constantly, and Dublin's geography is literally a sleeping giant's body. Let's try and unpack this beast. Right. So the very first thing, and maybe the most important thing to get straight, is that Finnegans Wake, and let's call it F.W. Wake, it isn't a novel in the usual sense.
Not at all. Our sources are pretty clear that Joyce himself often pushed back against calling it a novel. He spent, 17 years on it, and it ended up being something else.
Something unique. People have called it all sorts of things, haven't they? A poem, a dream journal, an epic.
Yeah, all of those. But I like the descriptions that call it a playground. Or maybe a wrecking yard, even a battlefield for literary experiments and myths. It basically forces you, the reader, to drop your usual expectations about plot and, things happening in order.
I really like that idea you mentioned before about it being a usable device or an object. That changes how you think about it completely.
It does. It suggests the meaning isn't just sitting there waiting for you to find it. You, the reader, you're actually involved in creating the meaning as you go. It's constantly referring back to itself, to language, to how we remember things. Sometimes more than it's telling a story about the Earwickers.
So if it's not a standard story, what's driving it? You said Joyce threw out wide-awake language and go-ahead plot.
Right. He was trying to capture something much more fundamental, more primal. The feeling of being asleep, the consciousness of dreams. He called F.W. a book of the night, written in the language of dreams.
That dream framework seems absolutely key then. The whole massive book operates on dream logic.
That's the idea. It's full of all the things dreams do. Distortion, things breaking apart, sudden jumps in who's talking or what's happening, characters sort of melting into each other.
So if you try and force a straight plot onto it, you're just going to get frustrated.
Exactly. Because dreams don't work like that. And to understand how this dream language functions, it helps to look at some of the ideas Joyce was playing with, even if he was sometimes making fun of them, like Freud's ideas about dreams.
Okay. Condensation and displacement, those concepts.
Precisely. They're really useful tools for trying to decode the text's density.
Okay, let's take condensation first. In dream terms, that's where a whole bunch of feelings or ideas get squashed down into one single image or word, right?
Yeah, squashed down is a good way to put it. Packed in. It's like a single word in FW might be doing the work of a whole paragraph in normal writing. It can blend multiple languages, historical figures, different emotions, all at once.
Like that example, commodious vucus of recirculation. It's not just about Vico.
Right. It suggests this comfortable, wide path. Commodious maybe hints at a Roman street, vicus, and directly names Vico and his cycles. All in 3 words. That's condensation. One little detail carrying layers and layers of meaning.
Okay, and then displacement. That's when the feeling attached to something, maybe something scary or forbidden, gets shifted onto something else less threatening.
Exactly. So in the book, when you read about HCE's supposed crime in Phoenix Park, the details are murky. That feeling of guilt or anxiety might actually be displaced from something deeper, maybe universal guilt or worries about sex or even historical failures. The text becomes, overdetermined. Almost everything can mean multiple things because the dream keeps swapping symbols around.
Which ties into this other crucial point.
Yeah.
We never actually know who the dreamer is. We're stuck inside the dream.
And that's deliberate, a core technique. Because we don't have that waking life reference point, we can't pin down the guilt like HCC's supposed crime or the son's fighting to anything definitively real. We're always suspended inside the dream's logic, its language. We just have to accept its fragmented reality as the only reality we get while we're reading.
Okay, so if there's no straight plot, the structure must come from somewhere else, something bigger. And that's where this 18th century philosopher, Giambattista Vico, comes in.
Yes, Vico is absolutely central. His big work, Scienza Nuova, The New Science, essentially provides the blueprint for FW's macro structure. Vico had this idea that history doesn't move in a straight line, it goes in repeating cycles. The Corso, he called it the run.
Right, and these cycles have distinct ages. Can we break those down quickly? Because they map onto the book structure, don't they?
They do, onto the 4 books of FW. So Vico saw history moving through 3 main ages before it loops back. First, the divine age. Think gods, primal fear, religion, myth. Authority comes like a thunderclap. Very poetic, very instinctual.
Then comes the heroic age. This is about aristocrats, strength, maybe violence, big founder figures like Finnegan himself or maybe Finn McCool from Irish myth.
Exactly, strong, imposing figures. Then third, you get the human age. This is our age, supposedly, governed by reason, intellect, democracy. But it also descends into, well, overly complicated language, corruption, confusion, things fall apart.
Leading to the Ricorso, the return.
The Ricorso, yeah. The collapse back into chaos, which then kicks off the divine age all over again. And Joyce builds this cycle right into the physical structure of the book.
The famous circularity. It starts mid-sentence.
Riverrun, past even atoms, from swerve of shore to bend of bay, brings us by a commodious vicus of recirculation back to Howth Castle and environs. Just throws you right in.
And then it ends.
It ends with the first half of that exact same sentence. Away alone, alas, loved along they. The final "the" just hangs there. It forces your eye, your mind, right back to the beginning, to Riverrun. It makes the circle unavoidable.
And that opening phrase itself, commodious vicus of recirculation. That's the Vico pun right there at the start.
Absolutely deliberate. Naming Vico, referencing his cycle's recirculation, all while describing the path of the river. It's Joyce basically announcing the book's operating system from Word 1.
Vico also talked about thunderclaps signaling the shifts between ages, didn't he?
He did. These huge primal sounds marking the disruption, the shift from chaos back to the divine. And Joyce takes that idea and turns it into these incredible, massive words scattered through the text.
The 10 Thunderwords. Each one is 100 letters long.
Yep, 100 letters. They're almost impossible to say out loud. They mash together words from dozens of languages and represent huge historical upheavals, wars, revolutions, the fall of empires, Babel, Sodom. But they also connect all that cosmic chaos to the very personal, almost silly fall of Finnegan off his ladder. The first one hits you right near the beginning, on page 3.
Wow. But Joyce doesn't just leave this as some abstract philosophical cycle. He anchors it firmly in Dublin.
Very much so. The grand repeating story, the fallen builder, Finnegan, who echoes figures like Osiris or Christ or Finn McCool, it all plays out in this specific landscape of Dublin, especially around Chapel Izard.
Dublin becomes the microcosm, and Finnegan's body is literally the landscape.
That's the image, yeah. The sleeping giant. Howth Head is his head. Phoenix Park, that's often seen as his feet pointing up, waiting to wake up and start the cycle again. The city is the stage and the character, in a way.
And there are even deeper historical layers tucked away, aren't there? Like that recurring number 1132?
Ah, yes, 1132. It pops up connected to HCE's mysterious crime or guilt. And it seems random at first, right?
Yeah, just a number.
But it's not random at all. 1132 is the year the Abbey of Kildare was destroyed. A really significant event in Irish history, often seen as symbolizing, the intrusion of outside power, colonialism, the loss of a golden age.
So Joyce links HCE's personal dream-level guilt to this major historical trauma for Ireland.
Exactly. He layers collective history, national loss, the cyclical nature of power and oppression, right onto this seemingly personal psychological detail of HCE's fall. His individual shame becomes a reflection of a much larger historical cycle of falling. It's incredibly dense.
Okay, so we've got Vico cycle as the engine, Freudian dream logic as the operating system. Now, who are the actual players in this dream? The Earwicker family, right? They're the core.
They are. They're the archetypal family living through this night in Chapel Izard. At the center, you've got Humphrey Chimpton Earwicker, or HCE. He's the father figure, the everyman, the innkeeper. But he's deeply flawed, burdened by this pervasive sense of guilt. He's like Adam or Noah the figure who has to fall for things to restart.
And his identity isn't fixed at all, is it? That's a key thing. He keeps changing names.
Constantly. That's the agnomen technique.
Yeah.
His identity just fragments. He's not just Humphrey Chimpton Earwicker. He becomes, here comes everybody, have a Childers everywhere, even the landscape itself, Howth Castle and environs.
So not just wordplay, it's saying something deeper.
I think so, yeah. It's a comment on the modern self, maybe. In a world full of information and rumors, maybe identity is fragmented, fluid. HCE is defined by what people say about him, the rumors, the names they call him, rather than some solid inner core. He's the man of hod, cement, and edifices, but also of rumor.
And balancing him is Anna Livia Plurabelle, ALP, the mother figure, the feminine principle.
Yes, ALP. She's the life force, the nurturer, and she's literally the river Liffey that flows through Dublin. She represents flow, change, endurance.
So her identity changes too, but differently, as the river flows.
Exactly. She transforms. She starts as this young nymph up in the hills, becomes a more matronly stream as she flows through the city, and then finally, as she nears the sea, she's described as an old, haggard scrub woman. She embodies time passing, but also the persistence of life flowing on past HCE's solid structures.
And the book ends with her voice, doesn't it? Her monologue.
It does. That beautiful, long, flowing monologue as the river reaches the sea at dawn. She's sort of dissolving, but there's this hope of returning as rain, completing the cycle, maybe bringing her husband back. It's incredibly poignant.
Then there are the sons, Shem and Shaun, the classic rivals.
The classic brother battle, yeah. Cain and Abel, Jacob and Esau. They're the twin opposition within the family, within the psyche perhaps, waiting to take over from their fallen father.
Shem is the artist type, the writer.
Shem the penman, yeah. He's the outcast, the creator, often seen as a kind of self-portrait of Joyce himself, maybe a satirical one. He's messy, rebellious, focused on the inner world, trying to write down the dream.
And Shaun, he's the opposite.
Shaun the post. He's the practical one, the conformist, Mr. Popular. He's clean, successful by worldly standards, more concerned with appearances and delivering messages, though he often messes them up. It's that eternal tension. Art versus commerce, introvert versus extrovert.
But it's not just simple opposition, is it? There's that connection to Giordano Bruno.
Right, Bruno's law of opposites. Joyce implies they aren't just enemies, they're two sides of the same coin. They need each other. The artist needs an audience, the message needs a deliverer. They kind of have to merge or work together to become the next HCE, to continue the cycle.
Okay, so we have these archetypal characters. But what actually happens, or rather, what are the central mysteries that keep popping up?
Well, despite the huge scope, the immediate tension often revolves around two specific, deliberately unsolved puzzles.
First, HCE's big scandal, the thing in Phoenix Park.
Exactly. What did he actually do? The rumors fly. Was it something innocent with two girls? Was it spying? Did he expose himself? The details are constantly shifting, blurred by gossip and different perspectives within the room.
And that ambiguity is the whole point.
Totally intentional. Joyce never lets you pin it down. So the crime becomes this container for all sorts of anxieties, universal guilt, sexual oppression. It's about the idea of a fall more than a specific event.
And the second mystery is the letter, the one the hen finds.
The enigmatic letter, yeah. Dug up by Biddy the hen from a Midden-Heap. Supposedly, it's ALP writing a letter to defend HCE to clear his name. But the letter itself is a mess. It's described as covered in tea stains, smudges, crossing lines. It's almost impossible to read clearly, and everyone in the book tries to interpret it.
And they all read it differently.
That's the crux. It can be read as proving HCE innocent or proving him guilty. It reflects back the reader's own biases. It's a perfect symbol for how hard it is to find objective truth, especially in historical documents or personal accounts. Truth is messy, smudged.
Okay, we absolutely have to talk about the language itself, because that feels like the main event in Finnegans Wake. Joyce didn't just tell a weird story. He basically invented a new language for it.
He really did. He threw out the rule book. Normal grammar, straightforward plot, gone. He wanted a language that could capture that fluid, associative state of dreaming.
And the main tool he used was the portmanteau word. Mashing words together.
Yes, but on an epic scale. Not just blending two English words. He'd fuse bits and pieces from dozens of languages, Irish, Latin, Greek, French, German, Sanskrit, you name it, into one single super dense word.
So every word becomes a puzzle you have to unpack.
Pretty much. Take that example, Big Master. But it clearly suggests master builder from Scandinavian languages, linking HCE to building things. But you also hear Big Master in English. And if you know Ibsen, you might think of his play, The Master Builder.
And that's a relatively simple one, you said.
Compared to some, yes. Joyce apparently claimed he wanted every word bound over to carry 70 top lexical readings. 70 meanings.
70. In one word.
That was the ambition. Think of a word like whales. Is it the animal? Is it the country whales? Is it the sound of wailing? Probably all three, maybe more, all condensed together. It's overwhelming.
Which must mean that just reading it silently on the page isn't enough. You have to hear it.
Absolutely crucial. It's an auditory experience as much as a visual one. Joyce uses incredible sound techniques, assonance, alliteration, rhythm, onomatopoeia. The language performs, it sings, it chatters, it booms.
Like music?
Yes, like a symphony or maybe like chaotic background noise. The title itself, Finnegans Wake without the apostrophe, comes from an old Irish ballad. The whole book is soaked in music, folk tunes, opera references. It mimics the flow of the Liffey ALP herself. You're meant to let the sound wash over you, like listening to a city at night.
Joyce himself compared it to the Book of Kells, didn't he? The illuminated manuscript.
He did, and it's a brilliant comparison. Think about the Book of Kells, those incredibly intricate, detailed pages where the decoration is almost part of the letters themselves, full of hidden symbols.
You have to look really closely to see everything.
Exactly. Both the ancient manuscript and Joyce's modern book are densely layered. They demand close attention. They reward you for tracing the patterns, appreciating the sheer craft involved. It's like this very Irish tradition of dense, symbolic art, but done with language.
So the goal isn't necessarily clarity in the normal sense. It's something else. Poetic prose.
That's a good way to put it. One critic described the aim as crystal and explosion.
Crystal and explosion. How does that work?
Well, Joyce takes a single word, right? And he makes it explode with all these potential meanings, these associations from different languages and contexts. But after that explosion, the original word is still there, somehow clearer, more itself crystalline, precisely because you now see all its explosive ambiguity. He's pushing language beyond its normal limits to find a deeper kind of poetry.
Okay, so given everything we've discussed, the cycles, the dream logic, the shifting characters, this explosive language reading FW sounds, frankly, terrifying.
It is intimidating. There's even a term for it, the Finnegans Wake paradox. You can only really understand it once you've already read it, which is not very helpful when you're starting out.
Right. Even scholars have admitted being scared to tackle it. So what's the mistake people make? Trying to read it like a normal book.
That's usually it. Approaching it page one, expecting a story, demanding to know what happens next. You just hit a wall pretty quickly doing that.
So we need strategies, practical ways in for someone who wants to try. You mentioned the spiral approach or the ski slope method.
Yes. That seems to be the consensus for actually getting somewhere with it. It means ditching the linear approach. Don't start at page one and plow through.
Okay. So where do you start?
You start with the easier bits, the bunny hills, sections that are maybe more lyrical or where the theme is a bit clearer. This builds your confidence, gets you used to the style before you tackle the really dense black diamond runs later. It frees you from that pressure of reading it in order.
What are some good bunny hills then?
Well, the Anna Livia Pluribel chapter, that's chapter 1.8, is often recommended. It's almost entirely made of river names from around the world, so it has this amazing flowing rhythm. You can just enjoy the sound of it.
Okay, that sounds manageable. Anywhere else?
Maybe the Shem, the penman chapter, I.7. It gives you some insight into the artist figure. Or the chapter with the children's games and riddles, that's TA 5.1. They give you footholds.
And then later, you can brave the really tough parts, like the pub scene.
Exactly. Chapter 2.3, that's famously difficult. But because the book is cyclical, jumping around actually helps. Things you noticed in an early chapter might suddenly click when you see them reappear in a different context later on.
That makes sense. And what about how to read? You mentioned a day-night approach.
Yeah, this is a really helpful idea. Basically, you use two different modes of reading.
Okay.
So daytime reading is your analytical mode. You've got your notes out, maybe a skeleton key or other guides. You're actively decoding, looking up words, tracing connections, trying to figure out the structure. It's the detective work, the intellectual puzzle solving.
Right, the left brain stuff.
Exactly. But then nighttime reading is completely different. This is where you read it aloud. Preferably aloud. You just let the language flow, focus on the sound, the rhythm, the puns, the music of it. Don't worry about understanding every word.
Just immerse yourself in the dreamscape.
Precisely. Treat it like music, like listening to that symphony or that chatter. You're engaging the right brain, the intuition. You need both modes, the analysis and the immersion, to really get the experience.
And reading it with others, that helps too.
Oh, hugely. Many Joyceans stress this. FW feels like it was designed for group reading, for collective puzzle solving, sharing the load, laughing at the jokes, debating interpretations. It makes the whole intimidating process much more manageable and, frankly, more fun.
So the biggest piece of advice is really about mindset, isn't it? Adjusting expectations.
Absolutely. You have to let go of needing total comprehension. Suspend the desire for one single right answer. Joyce is inviting you to play, to interact with the text, to embrace the confusion and ambiguity with, ideally, a sense of humor.
The enjoyment is in the process, the journey of discovery.
That's it. Finding unexpected connections, hearing weird echoes, maybe suddenly understanding a pun 3 chapters later. That's where the joy is. You have to be willing to sit with the chaos and realize that not having one answer actually opens up thousands of possibilities. #tag outro.
Wow. Okay, so we've really tried to map out the strange territory of Finnegans Wake today. We've seen how Joyce used language in a completely new way to capture dreams and Vico's cycles of history.
And how the characters, the Earwicker family, aren't fixed people, but fluid archetypes, constantly shifting through this one night's dream.
And the key takeaway for reading it seems to be, don't fight it head on. Use the spiral approach. Read it aloud, be curious, maybe find a reading group, and definitely embrace the weirdness.
Exactly. It's about the strategy and the mindset, not just brute intellectual force.
You know, even just dipping into FW, even a brief encounter, feels like it could change how you think about books, about language itself.
I think it can. It definitely makes you more aware of how complex meaning can be, how layered language is, even in everyday life. It stretches your idea of what literature can do.
So to wrap up, maybe a final thought for you, the listener, to consider. Finnegans Wake obviously breaks radically from normal linear language. It relies on sound, puns, association, dream logic.
So the question is, could it be that this incredibly obscure, difficult text, precisely because it ditches standard grammar and logic, could it actually be tapping into something more primal, a more universal way of understanding the world that's based on intuition, feeling, maybe the deep narrative structures of our subconscious, rather than the rules of waking thought?
Something to chew on. Does the wake get closer to how we really experience the world, underneath the surface of rational language? Keep that question in mind if you decide to take the plunge. Happy deep diving.